Hi, it's me, Tracy, your literary and tea time companion, inviting you in for one more cup before we close out the month of April. And I invite you for a share of what I've been reading this month. So grab your cozy cup and meet me back here in the library corner. Before we talk about all the lovely books, I really just wanted to say a big thank you to all of you for being here, for subscribers who have been here for a little while these recent months, and also those of you who have newly subscribed thanks to the BookTube newbie tag video that I posted recently. I am truly humbled by the lovely response from all of you, from the lovely comments, some emails even, just you reaching out to me and telling me that you enjoy being here, that you have found a new place to be with another book-loving friend. I thank you so much. I truly appreciate it. And I also just wanted to say a big thank you also for those who left lovely comments on another recent video, my cozy reading vlog at Easter time. I'm glad that you enjoyed it. We'll have to gather around my sofa again sometime very soon and have a cozy read together. I look forward to that. Let's talk about books, shall we? One of I'll say favorite, and I'll explain a little bit more about that, but also most interesting read this month has been Haruki Murakami's The City and Its Uncertain Walls, translated from the Japanese by Philip Gabriel. And let me share what this is about for you. When a young man's girlfriend mysteriously vanishes, he sets his heart on finding the imaginary city where her true self lies. His search will lead him to take a job in a remote library with mysteries of its own. When he finally makes it to the walled city, a shadowless place of horned beasts and willow trees, he finds his beloved working in a different library, a dream library. But she has no memory of their life together in the other world. And as the lines between reality and fantasy start to blur, he must decide what he is willing to lose. A love story, a quest, and an ode to books and libraries that house them, The City and Its Uncertain Walls is a parable for these strange times. I couldn't agree more. With that, this book is so interesting. It has a very surreal quality the whole time. A big question throughout reading this is, what is real? Our main character, who is nameless, essentially, is what he is experiencing real, or is it a dream? And is he even real himself? The love story, is this a figment of his imagination? Has this really happened to him? And his experience in this mysterious walled city where he finds his love again, only to leave it's really palpable. It's actually a very unusual love story. And it's sad too. It has a beautiful melancholy. I personally love stories like that, where there's a little undercurrent of melancholy, and because it strikes at the human heart, it strikes at our humanness and everything that is fragile about us, but also things that lift us up as well, like love. And it is a love story to the end, this real or imagined love story. And also the library, it is very much a homage to books, to libraries. And I would say that the ending was satisfying in the only way that it could be, because we are still left wondering, what is this about? And I think that's sort of the whole point, for us to engage with the questions of what is real, what is not, what is love, what is the essential nature of love, and what is the essential natures of being human. And there are times, especially now, the times that we live in, sometimes it would be nice to escape to another place that maybe is more to our ideal, maybe our ideal place of living. And so, dreams and daydreams become something more real for us. So it's a beautiful book about dreams and love and reality, or questions about reality. I really enjoyed this book very much. And keeping with the theme of Japanese literature, Japanese translated literature, I also read The Goodbye Cat by Hiro Arikawa, translated from the Japanese again by Philip Gabriel into English. And this was such a sweet and heartwarming book of stories about cats, about cats relating to, reflected in the different phases and life of a cat, sort of, and human lives, lives of a cat, lives of humans, and what it is to share life with a cat. I am a cat mama, so this book was very appealing to me. And if you are a cat lover, you will also love this book of stories. My favorite story was probably The Night Visitor, probably one of the shortest stories in the book. And I just loved it because it was rather funny. The protagonist of this story, it's just the protagonist and the cat in this very short piece. And it is essentially about the protagonist being woken in the middle of the night, 2-3 o'clock in the morning, by their cat, and this sort of relentless cycle of being woken in the night and and being frustrated, but also loving this cat at the same time. It is such a charming book. I highly recommend it if you love cats, as I say, but also if you just need something sweet and uplifting to read in the times that we're living in. Truly. Let's see. Also in translated fiction a little bit more, I have just lately finished reading South Korean writer Han Kang, the Nobel Prize winner, The White Book, a novel. I have the Norwegian edition, translated into Norwegian by Jarde Brine. And we have to give some credit for the translators because they do a wonderful job bringing to life stories and other reading material from another language into a language we are able to understand ourselves. So it's great to pay some attention to the translators. This is one of Han Kang's earlier works from, I think it was 2019, 2020. So this was before she won the Nobel Prize for Literature. And this book is such a poignant little novella, and it's rather semi-autobiographical in that it pays homage to the loss of her big sister who died just hours after being born, and what that has meant to her and her family. A white thread weaving through the fabric of her life, and the color white. A color is spoken of in this story, and also its absence. And language is also used as a way to process grief and sadness. And it is very heartwarming read, but it also really hits the heart, because essentially this is about grief and mourning, and touches all the very fragile places in our heart. If you are in a grieving period, this might not be the book for you right now, but I would encourage you to try it maybe later, because it helps to find language sometimes when we are grieving, while we're in the process, maybe when we feel like a process of grieving is done, but things come flickering up, don't they? Remembrances, stories, experiences from times past. Language brings us back down. It can ground us, and it can be a kind of a healing medicine when we find language to describe, even for ourselves, how to deal with some of the biggest things in life, grieving among them. This was really beautifully written. Just as I say, the language so beautifully written, the musings on grief and color and the small things of life as we are going through grief, as we are processing grief. This just so beautiful, really. And last, for some fiction today, I during Easter, I tried some crime fiction, Harlan Coben's Win. And I did get off to a good start, and I will say a little bit more, but let me just read the blurb for you in case you missed my other video. On New York's Upper West Side, a recluse is found murdered in his apartment. Beside him is a stolen masterpiece by Vermeer and a leather suitcase bearing the initials WHL3, Windsor Horn Lockwood III, or Wynne as he is known, is called to the crime scene and immediately recognizes both the painting and the suitcase as his own. How did both items end up in the dead man's apartment? And is there a connection to the abduction years previously of Wynne's cousin Patricia? The crime has long baffled the FBI, but now Wynne is on the case, and he has 3 things the FBI has not: a personal connection to the crime, a large personal fortune, and his own unique brand of justice. I will say that this is very well written. I will say that. The pacing was excellent. The series of events just flowed very well. The ending was satisfied. Our hero, if you could call him that, is redeemed, and everything, all's well that ends well, as it can be with crime laced in the background. I will say that my problem lied in the protagonist himself, Wynne. I had a hard time bumping up against his arrogance, his very much he is very full and complete in himself and belief in himself, and the money can buy him everything, and it can do everything he needs. And he is certainly very gifted in what he is doing in solving crimes, and dedicated to what he does. And I admire that. But the traits of his personality were a little bit difficult. It kind of made me feel like, do you ever question sometimes, or wonder sometimes, would you want to meet a character from a book in real life? And I had one of those moments where, I think it would be tough to meet this guy, with his bit of attitude and arrogance, and I think it would be tough, but but it was fun to read. It was fun to try. I'm not sure if this was my best introduction to crime fiction, reintroduction to crime fiction. I did also borrow another crime fiction book for Easter reading, which I did not get to. I did not get to this month. Exit by Belinda Bauer. And I'm not sure if I will get to read it in time before it is due back. And after this, I'm a little uncertain. I will possibly give it another go, and if I do, I might update on that one in the community posts. If you've not been to visit my post section, I invite you to do so. I post something every week, usually on Wednesdays, often, most of the time, book related. So maybe I will give a little update there. So, crime fiction? I'm trying. For our visit today, I have a lovely Ceylon tea in my cup. Just a black tea, lovely black tea, which gives a nice little boost for a late morning. I'm really enjoying this tea. Let me know what's in your cup today. I'd love to share a little poetry with you now. April, back home in America, is Poetry Month. And I've been reading a little bit of poetry. I've been writing a lot of my own poetry. There were 2 books of poetry I was hoping very much to read during this month, but I was not able to get them in time through Interloan for this month. So I will hope for those for my TBR for the month of May. But I have been reading from Rumi, the Book of Love, Poems of Ecstasy and Longing, translated by Coleman, America's foremost translator of Rumi. And that is interesting because Coleman does not speak or read Persian, which the 13th century medieval Sufi poet Rumi, that was his language. And it's interesting because Coleman has used English translations, but he has done them in such a way that it feels very alive. The nuances. He has expressed the love of this love poetry so well, so beautifully. Coleman is a great wordsmith. So, language aside, it's just a beautiful book. This is actually a beautiful softcover edition I purchased in Oslo back in mid-March, and it's just really beautiful for a paper volume. Deckled edges. I love a deckled edge. Often that is on, you see that more often with hardcover editions, and it's just so beautiful. This is a Harper 1 edition, a Harper Collins publishing. It's just really beautifully done. And I love the poems of Rumi, and I know we often see Rumi quotes on everything from refrigerator magnets, greeting cards, calendars. There's a little bit of Rumi everywhere, and it feels like with good reason, because he translated love into language, the feeling of love into language so beautifully. And on the flap here, I hear nothing in my ear but your voice. Heart has plundered mine of its eloquence. Love writes a transparent calligraphy, so on the empty page my soul can read and recollect. Let me read just one more for you. It's just too beautiful. And this is from the chapter Escaping into Silence. The language, close the language door, the mouth. Open the love window, the eyes. And this one is entitled Quietness. Inside this new love die, your way begins on the other side. Become the sky. Take an axe to the prison wall. Escape. Walk out. Like somebody suddenly born into color. Do it now. You're covered in thick cloud. Slide out the side. Die and be quiet. Quietness is the surest sign that you're dead. Your old life was a frantic running from silence. The speechless full moon comes out now. And this is really lovely too. Some kiss we want. There is a kiss we want with our whole lives. The touch of spirit on the body. Sea water begs the pearl to break its shell. And the lily, how passionately it needs some wild darling. At night I open the window and ask the moon to come and press its face against me. Breathe into me, close the language door, and open the love window. The moon won't use the door, only the window. Such beautiful language. Rumi, the Book of Love. I can highly recommend it. It will do your heart good. And now I would like to share with you my Jane Austen reading for this month, as well as my other Regency period reading. And this month I had the lovely Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. And this is one of my favorites and beautiful cover of this edition. And what I thought this time, I write. I do a lot of writing, and I've been doing some creative writing with essays lately, and on different topics that aren't related just to my own life. And I thought that I would read something that I have written about Pride and Prejudice, sort of my own summary of the story, because sometimes I find, like this particular edition, this Penguin Classics edition, with its light, bright, and sparkling dialogue, it doesn't really give you very much about the story. It's some of the blurbs on the backs of some of the Jane Austen novels, it's almost like assuming that you know the story. And people are coming to Jane Austen stories all the time that maybe don't necessarily know the story, and maybe you have not read Pride and Prejudice. So let me tell you a little bit about it. I hope you won't mind my reading from what my own little summary. Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen is a timeless exploration of human love, human nature, and the importance of looking beyond first impressions. Set against a backdrop of the English countryside and the drawing rooms of the landed gentry, the 19th century values and manners, Austen beautifully creates a narrative that satirizes the societal norms of the time while also portraying the individual growth of characters alongside the follies that arise from the romantic entanglements of its characters. The tale revolves around the Bennet family, particularly the second eldest daughter, Elizabeth. Elizabeth, with sparkling wit and intelligence, tends to judge people based on first impressions. The arrival of wealthy Mr. Bingley and his rich friend, Mr. Darcy, creates quite a stir in the village, especially for the Bennet family, with its 5 marriageable daughters. The characters stumble in so many human ways, but the road leads to happiness, where everything turns out for the good, and leading to 3 out of the 5 daughters of the Bennet family being married, satisfactory to the time standards. The wealthy and proud Mr. Darcy initially makes a poor impression on Elizabeth due to his arrogance. Meanwhile, the charming Mr. Wickham captures Elizabeth's interest, but his true nature is later revealed to be deceitful and unscrupulous when he elopes with Elizabeth's younger sister, Lydia. Through a series of social events and interactions, Elizabeth and Darcy's paths cross frequently, despite their initial dislike for each other, and through a number of meaningful events and moments, they gradually come to see each other in a different light. Darcy's growing admiration for Elizabeth leads him to propose to her, but she initially rejects him. As the story unfolds, Elizabeth learns more about Darcy's true character, including kindness, integrity, and loyalty, while Darcy comes to appreciate Elizabeth's intelligence and independence of mind. Their feelings for each other deepen, and they eventually overcome their pride and prejudice to find love and happiness together. This story is so rich, and not least for the very big love story of Darcy and Elizabeth, but the side characters are also very well detailed in a way that supports the overall story. Everyone from Elizabeth's father with his dry humor, buffoonish Mr. Collins, odious Mr. Collins, who ends up with Elizabeth's friend Charlotte Lucas, very snobbish Lady Catherine de Bourgh, Jane, Elizabeth's eldest sister, and her romance with Mr. Bingley. It's such a beautiful cast of characters and exploring human character, human nature, and love. It's a love story, and it's probably one of those early romances that we think of in classic literature. It is a true rom-com because it is very funny. Jane Austen wrote very charming dialogue that was funny, sometimes a little bit snarky, even a gossipy. She knew how to capture people. And she also captured the time period very well. The time period, the early 19th century, is portrayed very well through manners, especially, and the norms. It is such a beautiful story, and I do love the 1995 miniseries adaptation of Pride and Prejudice, starring Jennifer Ely and Colin Firth. I also very much enjoy the 2005 film adaptation with Keira Knightley and Matthew McFadden. They both offer different sides of the story. The 1995 was the first one I saw, and it's a polished gem. It just really showcases a very beautiful picture of the whole story. While the 2005, it's a bit more gritty. It has a bit more tooth. It shows the Bennet family in what was probably a very real situation. They are not as wealthy as Mr. Darcy or Mr. Bingley, and I like that kind of detail. It has a bit of a different realism. I love both of them very much for different reasons. And this story is a classic from my own reading life, and I love it very much. I can recommend it very much. I hope you enjoyed my little summary of the story. It's sometimes a little hard to do justice to some of these classic works, and certainly it is a big story to try to put into a blurb on the back of a small softcover book. It's a classic for reasons. If you have not read Pride and Prejudice before, I highly recommend it. It is often a very good starting point for Jane Austen if you have not read Jane Austen before. So I hope that you will give that a try. And for moving on to Regency reading from the Regency period, reading of the Regency period, I have read a fantastic book, Regency Style, by Stephen Parissien. And it's a beautiful, large coffee table book, style book, and it is very beautiful. Let me share a cutaway with you and talk about this wonderful book dedicated to Regency style. Part of my Regency reading for the month of April was the pleasure of reading Regency Style by Stephen Parissien, an expert on Regency time period in terms of the arts. This book is a richly illustrated survey of Regency homes from the exterior architecture to the inside interiors, as well as discussing furniture, decorations, upholstery, window treatments, and color schemes. Yellow, for example, was a popular color of the period, as was red, which was used to convey wealth and richness. Everything is covered here: bricks, tiles, plaster, windows, which tended to be long and tall, ironwork, wallpapers, paint, gilding, furniture to very specific spaces and rooms, ornamentation and fabrics. Early 19th century style comprised an interesting and exciting mix of inspiration from antiquity paired with the exotic, as well as the influence on current and emerging technologies of the time. The result is elegant, eclectic, and what would now be considered very British, a very unique British style. The Regency style made its way to other places as well, especially the United States, the style translating to what is known there as Federal and Empire styles. Prominent Regency period designers John Soane and Thomas Hope are featured in both illustrations and text within this book, and the book is a very enjoyable read. As well as being highly educational, it also contains fun anecdotes about life in the Regency period. Daily topics are also covered, from cooking, cleaning, bathing, sanitation. The last chapter of the book dips into gardens as seen as an extension of a Regency period home. The garden is shown in both urban setting and in the countryside. Regency style is my favorite style when it comes to architecture and interiors. Although I am more a minimalist at heart, so less tassels, trims, gilding, and knickknacks for me. But I like the overall elegance. I have one more Jane Austen Regency period related book to share with you. During my Regency and Jane Austen reading project, I've been trying each month to have a work by Jane Austen to read or another Regency period fictional work, alongside one or two books related to the Regency period itself, art, interiors, design, and history. There will be more to come. If this is your first time here, first time joining me, I have this year-long Jane Austen Regency reading project. I'll leave a link in the description box below. This month I had the great pleasure of reading, I have some notes so I don't forget to tell you everything, the Jane Austen Handbook, edited by J. David Gray. And this is essentially a compendium of all things Jane Austen. This was published originally in the mid-1980s. It is gathered articles, essentially, pertaining to all things about Jane Austen and her life and time period. It's set up rather like a dictionary, an A to Z, starting with Jane Austen herself, her birth, and relevant information for her life, architecture and style of the Regency period, and how they feature in her work or the time period itself, criticisms of her work, analysis of her works, dress and fashion, food and drink of the time period, and as they are mentioned in her stories as well, history and politics. It's very interesting. We think of Jane Austen mostly as writing these sort of rom-com, lovely stories, but there are hints of history of the time period. I'm thinking especially of Persuasion, Frederick Wentworth, Captain Frederick Wentworth in the military. The military is mentioned because much of Jane Austen's lifetime there was war, the Napoleonic Wars, and there was only it was about just the last decade of her life, I believe, 10, 12 years, where there was a more peaceful time period. So she knew the country at war or dealing with preparing for war. There's also some interesting entries explaining pertaining to Janeites and anti-Janeites. The love or not love of Jane Austen has like a longer history than we might think about. The Janeites were much in evidence before now. And letters and correspondence. That was something I should have mentioned while talking about Pride and Prejudice. Letters feature quite frequently in Pride and Prejudice, and letters are a very interesting dramatic device used in the story. It helps with the pacing of the story. It gets behind some more of the action, and the letters are just really fantastic in Pride and Prejudice. And of course, Mr. Darcy's famous letter to Elizabeth in chapter 35. So letters are a wonderful feature in the books, and not least in Jane Austen's life. Reading her letters, I read her collected letters recently also as part of my Regency reading project. Correspondence was very much a important part of connecting with people and doing business as well. Music and nature are explored in this handbook relating to the time period. There's not a lot of music in Jane Austen's books necessarily, but nature is hinted at. The plot summaries of the stories have an examination in this handbook, which is so interesting. Travel and transportation. Everything is in this book. It's everything, really. Verses. Jane Austen wrote in verse. We don't think of her as a poet necessarily, although she was great with words. But verses was something that she wrote more for personal pleasure. It was not necessarily something that she strove to put out into the public. My favorite section was there was an entry about canceled chapters from Persuasion, which is my favorite of the 6 complete novels. And it was such an interesting chapter because it showed examples of Jane Austen's own edits of her work. And it was just fascinating. I love to write myself, so it was very interesting to see what she left, what she took out, how she rearranged certain parts of the story. It was just really a fascinating entry in the book. I could really go on about this handbook because it literally has everything Jane Austen. And if you are a Jane Austen fan, if you are a Janeite, you will really appreciate this book. And if you are just exploring Jane Austen, this would be a great way to learn more about her and her time period and her work. I would say probably the only thing missing from this book, because it looks very much like a dictionary when you open it and leaf through it. The entries are quite long, but it's arranged like an A to Z, like a dictionary. So it's a lot of text. I feel like this book would have benefited with it, even just 2 sections of illustrations or facsimiles of a letter or examples of her writing. I feel it would have been an extra little boost to have some visuals for this very impactful and work that helps us to learn more about Jane Austen and her time and her work. We're visual people, so I suppose I found myself really craving some visuals to go along with the fantastic entries. So regardless, I can still highly recommend the Jane Austen Handbook for learning more about Jane Austen. I have so much enjoyed our chat about books over a cup of tea today and celebrating reading from the month of April. I am really looking forward to hearing about what you have been reading this month and any highlights that you have had. Tell me your best reads from this month. I would love to know. And I have some good reading lined up for May, which I am very excited to share with you as the month goes along. And for my Regency reading project, I have Rob Roy by Sir Walter Scott, which I have not read before, so I'm really excited about that, as well as 2 other Regency-related books. I'm in the process of ordering those through Interloan from the library. One I was not able to borrow for May from my reading list, so I will have to juggle the list a little bit for a second book, but we shall see what we end up with for May. I actually still have some reading from April to share, manga and illustrated stories, but I think I will share these in another video. And so until next time, I wish you happy reading, and as always, many blessings. Thank you for being with me today. I'll see you soon.